They'll tell you one story over this part of the world, and they'll tell another story over on the other side of the world. On one part of the world, they'll be narrowed down this way. On another part of the world, they'll be narrowed down that way. And they bring these into conflict with each other and steer the conversation on either side and bring the world into various wars and various power shifts. The powers that be are ordained by God. There is no power but of God. And the powers that be so happen to be, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This is what's steering the masses. We are not wrestling against flesh and blood. What's going on over there in the Ukraine? What's going on over there in Russia? They're being told a different story in Russia. What's going on over here in America, in Britain, in France, in Europe? We're all being told a different story. And talking about an iron curtain, there's kind of an iron curtain gone through the midst of this world, and the news and the stories and the tellings and the courses of events as interpreted by the media over there in Russia and China and all these other countries are so much in opposition to the news and the stories and how they interpret events in the world over here in the West. And so you can literally get the world to believe anything and everything that they choose. And that if they want to bring the world into conflicts and war and even bring in what you might call an end of the world scenario. We all know we have all of this talk of climate change on the news all over the world, and we all know that we, as people like the new king in England, talks about this last window of opportunity that mankind has to save the world, to save the planet from global warming, etc. This is all orchestrated through the media, and they get everyone on board. Well, let's get into the mind of St. Paul, of where he was, let's say, coming from. And with this, you have to have an understanding that St. Paul indeed understood the scriptures, as most Christians back then understood the scriptures. Jesus had already come and gone. He'd left his words with his disciples. And all of this was passed on by word of mouth. And so to get into the mind of St. Paul, you need to understand what certain words he was using. And what phrases were going through his mind, as was going through the mind of every Christian of those days, all looking to the second coming of Jesus Christ. So, using the word "coming" is the word "coming" is where are they coming from when they're using this word "coming"? The coming of the Lord Jesus Christ, right? So Matthew 24 verse let's go into verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, right? So Jesus sat on this Mount of Olives with his disciples. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be?" So the subject matter here is going to be the last days, the days that we are now living in, and the time period of Jesus' second coming. Well, there's the word "coming" right there. So when Paul uses the word "coming," he's talking about the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And of course, they understood back then where Paul was coming from. He's coming from these words here. For instance, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So they're talking now the second coming of Jesus Christ. So Jesus, to cut it short, Jesus then goes on to talk about his second coming and all these various signs. He says, "Take heed that no man deceive you. Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." In fact, many shall come showing great signs and wonders and deceive many. And so when the very Antichrist comes in, this man of sin comes in, he's going to show great signs and great wonders, great signs and great lying wonders. So Jesus talking about the great signs and the great wonders that are going to happen. It's coming in with, and what shall be the sign of thy coming of the end of the world? Well, Jesus goes on to say in verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Well, we have a world that's very troublesome these days. And what do we have? We have a world that's looking like potentially borderline possible that we are looking at the end of the world. You have all of these climate conferences going on. You have one now going on in Egypt. What are they discussing? They're discussing saving the planet. They're discussing the end of the world. They're discussing this small window of opportunity that we now have to save the planet, to save man from himself, is what they're actually, as they would stage all this, you would say. Are they staging all of this? Are they able to bring in climate change? Many now look up into the skies and they see these what they call chemtrails in the sky. Many saying this is weather manipulation. This is many saying there's such a thing as all of this advanced technology called HAARP, and they can now manipulate and change weather patterns all around the world. Well, what they could change weather patterns all around the world and bring in climate change, and then interpret this to the world as being this last window of opportunity that we now have to save the planet. And so these conferences materialise, either they're in Scotland or Egypt, talking about, well, what are they talking about? The end of the world, saving the planet. And all of this energy crisis, and now we need to go over to renewable energies. What are they talking about? The end of the world. All of this trouble in the Ukraine, and all of this talk now coming out about nuclear weapons all over again, and should they drop the bomb and all of this, which will again bring in the end of the world. So we're very much looking at the potential for mankind to destroy himself these days, and borderline. Should a skirmish take place in Ukraine and suddenly bring these superpowers into conflict with each other, we're looking at World War III and nuclear weapons, and the potential again for the end of the world. So you have a world that's tottering on the brink of the end of the world. We have this economic crisis, and people are wondering if they can even meet their needs for energy, and meet their needs to pay their bills and for food, and to eat and put clothes on their back. So that we're again looking at the end of the world. So where's Paul coming from when he's talking about, he's using the word coming in. So we're looking into where he's coming from. So here's Jesus, right? Immediately after the tribulation of those days, talking again about the end of the world, the actual end of the world. Immediately after verse 29, so Matthew 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. Well, imagine you have a troublesome world. You've got to remember here, the Antichrist, the devil is a great imitator. The Antichrist, when he's finally revealed, will be coming in after having all power and signs and lying wonders. Well, lying wonders, he's a great imitator. He's coming in to present himself as the Christ. So to present himself as the Christ, every Christian would know, and even peoples of the world have heard how Jesus will come back in the clouds of heaven with great glory. Well, we're looking at the coming, right? The coming of Jesus Christ. So let's look at verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, this is the actual end of the world. Jesus saying this, that those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. Well, largely through the media now, they're saying the same things. In other words, except those days should be short. In other words, except those days should be stopped, is what it means. There should no flesh be saved. So if mankind doesn't stop his present course, the potential for World War III as a result of the Ukraine, the climate conference, etc., the energy crisis, inflation, etc., whether you can you pay your bills, whether you can put a roof over your head. It might look like the end of the world as we know it. And everyone being shaken in their mind and looking for a solution. This will be much like it will be when Jesus comes back, the end of the tribulation of those days. So what if they could jumpstart the end time? What if they brought in an end time, end of the world scenario? What if they staged the whole thing? What if behind the scenes there is this mystery of iniquity that doth already work, right? And operating and bringing about all of these great events that we are now witnessing. You might sit in your front room or at the movies and watch a movie, but what if they could manipulate the world and you are now in the movie? What if this is all scripted and staged and all according to the prince of the power of the air, as St. Paul called Satan himself, the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience? What if the whole world was now more in the hands of Satan than ever it was? What if now the whole world was in the hands of the mysterious power that operates from behind the scenes, this mystery of iniquity having its roots in the spiritual? What if these powerful men from behind the scenes were indeed operating through secret organisations like the Illuminated ones, the Illuminati and such? What if there was such a person called Adam Weishaupt that was indeed into witchcraft, that brought in all this in a more technical sense? The Illuminati and these secret societies do indeed work together with their god Lucifer from behind the scenes. What if indeed they were aware of the war of the worlds and this war of the spirit and the war between Jesus Christ and the very fallen cherub, Satan himself, the fallen cherub, from behind the scenes? What if they're aware of the fact that from behind the scenes there's going to one day be this great war in heaven? Here's your alien invasion right here in the book of Revelation, in that there is war in heaven. Now go right into the powers that actually be from behind the scenes. There was war in heaven, it says. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels, and the dragon and his angels prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven, and the great dragon was cast out. That old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And then a voice is heard saying, Woe unto the earth, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, for he knoweth that he have but a short time. Well, there's your alien invasion right there. These alien forces being, alien meaning something alien to man, alien being, an alien being a fallen angel, the devil and his angels coming to this earth, being cast out of heaven by Michael and his angels. There's your alien invasion right there. But what if the devil was to stage such a thing? Well, here's Jesus, verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. This is the second coming of Jesus Christ, the actual second coming of Jesus Christ. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming. Here's the second coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.